Well, greetings from Flight Quest. Welcome to Wednesday Wings. Today's session is going to be on crosswind takeoff and crosswind landings. Not just any crosswind. It's a crosswind that we're going to develop in X-Plane. We're going to use the Laminar 172, the stock version of it. I have no plugins running, no enhancements or anything like that. So what we're going to do is take a look at the runway, which is runway 33. We'll set that up with our crosswind, and that probably will use one out of the west, about 240, and let's make our crosswind velocity at, let's go with 20. Well, the POH says in the 172, the demonstrated crosswind component of the airplane is about 17 knots. Well, that's for the average pilot. I know we're all a little bit above average, so being above average, let's bump that number up a little bit to a nice round number, say 20 knots. Okay, so again, welcome to Flight Quest. My name is Steve, and this is a new series, a weekly video, midweek. I'm going to call it Wings Wednesday, and it's going to be everything and anything VFR. We're going to do this. I'm going to show you how to do multiple takeoffs and landings in crosswind situations without having to do a traffic pattern altitude. Okay, so the whole idea is we're going to use the correct control inputs, take off, level off, and then land in the same direction right after that departure, or not departure, but takeoff. That's why we want to choose a runway that's very long, maybe 10,000 feet or more, maybe something like out of JFK or that. I chose the Kennedy Space Center down in Florida because I wanted some warmer temperatures, and it's a very nostalgic location, you know, with a lot of stuff. So we might even be test pilots on this one. So we're going to be doing this in our home simulator, X-Plane12 in the 172. Again, this is for the simulator use only, but to get practice in there. I do have my little lesson plans out here in there, normal and crosswind takeoff, as you can see. And I have another one, a normal and crosswind landing, custom made, but I have this little checklist so that I don't, you know, try not to leave anything out. So it's really just going to come down to about the things we're looking about. You know, we need to review the wind conditions. We know that the winds are from 20 to are at 20 knots, and from the left side or the right side of the airplane depends on our takeoff direction. We talk about the use of the flaps, talk about our wind correction angle so that our ground track can remain constant in a straight line down the runway. We're going to reduce power as we slow down. Our wind correction angle may have to increase or decrease depending on what the winds are or the actual position or repositioning of the airplane to get us back over centerline. Plane increases speed, how we reduce the control deflection, or as the airplane decelerates, how we're going to ultimately end up increasing that in control deflection into the wind. How the wind affects the longitudinal direction of the airplane. In other words, it acts like a weather vane because the wind is hitting the right side of the vertical stab or hitting the left side of the vertical stab. It could help us or hinder us. We might need a little more pedal in one direction and a lot less on the other side. If we have a wind hitting us from the right side, it tends to yaw the nose into the wind. We need less rudder input. So remember, sometimes what we put in, we got to take out, because after departure, we're going to do the wind correction angle in coordinated flight. So the power settings really are progressively apply power, climb to about 200 feet above runway elevation, bring the power down to 2,000 RPM, work on our wind correction angle, and then we'll reduce the power to about 14 to 1,500 RPM, not less than VSO, 1.3 times VSO, which means the stalling speed in there with stuff out. Sometimes we say shit out. So we're going to use flaps at 10 degrees. The landing gear is fixed. So we'll probably add onto that maybe 7 knots, and then with a gust factor add 5 more knots onto that airspeed. So that will give me approximately 65 to 70 knots in a descent. And then as we get lower, timing the round out, then we're going to have to kick the rudder in there to get the nose realigned with our landing direction so that we don't have any side forces on the airplane. And then we're going to have to dump that aileron into the upwind, you know, to get that wing down method in there so that we can land the airplane going straight down the runway. It's entirely possible you will be on one wheel for a little bit of that time. But also just think this is not a normal landing. So we're not going to try to keep the nose up in the air and bleed all of the extra airspeed off. But we want to be at a comfortable speed to let the nose wheel come down so that we have the aid of the nose gear for steering also, because the wind is still going to want to work on that vertical stab, yawing the airplane left to right. I know a lot of people say, okay, hold the nose up, hold the nose up. That may not be the case in this crosswind landing at all. If you want a little more ground handling capability, you could retract the flaps, but that's just one extra step. You need to really concentrate on your ground roll. So other than that, let's get right to it. I'm going to show you how we set up the crosswind landing and takeoff, or crosswind takeoff and landing in X-Plane using the menu feature, customizing the direction of the wind, and we're also going to look at customizing the airplane. Let's add some fuel into the airplane. Let's kind of check our center of gravity. Everything's going there. A heavier airplane is going to aid us for Wings Wednesday. Everything VFR, anything VFR. I didn't want to leave my VFR pilots out of the picture. My Friday flights are generally about IFR operations, down and dirty. This is not the classroom environment. You can get all that kind of stuff from other YouTube videos or the Pilot Operating Handbook, Airman's Information Manual, and all that kind of sort of information. We'll talk about normal and crosswind landings, normal and crosswind takeoffs. So this is just, we're getting in the airplane, two of us, one airplane, one runway, and you'll see we won't have to fly a traffic pattern because we're going to take off and land on the same runway, same direction, turn around on the ground, and do that. Well, what that means is we don't have a headwind or a tailwind. We always have the wind off the left or right side of the airplane, so we can use both directions without having to do a left traffic pattern or a right traffic pattern to change the direction of which the wind is striking the airplane. Well, let's get right to it. Let's go fly. Welcome to Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Again, my name is Steve. This is Flight Quest 40, and this is Wings Wednesday. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for the next week, but look forward to a weekly VFR type video in the middle of the week, and then we'll still do my Friday flights with the instrument, different airports, different challenges, different ways to fly and approach, challenging approaches, missed approaches, you name it. Generally, most of my flying is hand flying. I'm not utilizing the autopilot all that much, although I do configure my GPS unit, my Garmin, or the X-Plane530, or the X-Plane1000, known as the Garmin 1000, and so forth. So we get into that, DME arcs and so forth. But this is anything and everything VFR, emergency procedures, landing, takeoffs, turns around a point, rectangular patterns, anything I can do to give you a good workout to help you increase your proficiency in your simulator. Now, a lot of this I wouldn't exactly apply to real world flying, although you could. But if you're going to do that, it's good. Err on the safe side. Don't try this at a busy airport. But this is just for your home simulator usage, and one way that I work on extreme crosswind takeoff and extreme crosswind landings. And then I find that when I do fly a nice little cross country and the winds are maybe 30 degrees off the nose, gusting to 30 from maybe 15 knots on a quartering headwind, my crosswind landings and my crosswind takeoffs are a lot better. Why? Because I trained and I practice in some extreme conditions, being directly off the wing. So with that, let's get started. Let's go fly. I'm excited. If I pull file down, you can see it right here in the corner. Let me try to right there and go to main menu. Then we're going to new flight. Let's take a look at our airplane first of all, then we'll get to the wind. Cessna Skyhawk. This is laminar research. Let's hit custom. I'm going to look at weight and balance and fuel. Well, let's take a look at our weight and balance. I'm going to put two pilots. This is already configured. Two pilots in there. There's no rear passengers, a little bit of baggage, aft baggage in there, and we have our fuel up here. And we notice we are within the center of gravity envelope here. We are a little bit to the front of this thing, and we applied tool. Sometimes when you come in, X-Plane will default to, mid-fuel, but I have the same amount of fuel in the left wing and the right wing, so I don't have any different conditions there. We want everything going for us, and I'm going to go ahead and get these applied to be approximately even. And there you go. And you can do this with this top handle. So we can bring that all the way down to 0, and I'm going to bring it up here. And now we got a little bit of a heavier airplane that's going to help us in this crosswind situation, that our airplane won't be displaced that easily with it. Now once we got the airplane set up, let's go ahead and hit done. Apply changes. Nothing changed, so I'm just going to discard changes. Let's come back up and pull up our main menu against it. We can get the main menu from here, like we said. Now let's pick up real world weather. Let's look at that. Now, I don't want to use real world weather because I want to set up my own wind. So I'm going to uncheck that, and then we're going to go customize. And here we have, since there's no weather in there as clouds, all we see the wind in there. So we're going to come down and update this wind property, right? So we double click on that. Let me come down to the bottom one, and we notice our winds are magnetic, our direction magnetic with the winds, our speed, turbulence, gust increases, total wind shear. Well, we're not going to have any of that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the speed, and we're going to go ahead and set that up for 20 knots. Okay, so there's 20 knots. Now we know that runway 33, we're probably looking at the winds out of 240, so let's change the magnetic direction of the winds. And let's just grab our little arrow here, and it should go around. My mouse is being a little bit, once I can get that thing in there, plus or minus 5 degrees, 270, 260, 249, 242, good enough, okay? So we got that. Let's do it, and you see the 20 knots right in there. They have some gusting going on. 0, that's all up here above it is. If I want to do another level of it, I can double click on the second one, and we would come up with another wind. I can delete that wind layer. Okay, so we're done there. Let's go ahead, look at anything here. Wind temperature, let's bring the temp up a little bit more. 74 degrees. Altimeter setting is fine. Visibility is 13 miles. That's the morning haze here in Florida. And hit done. Apply changes. So then it'll go through its little thing like that. It's usually pretty quick. Now, there's another way to do this. Or you could come over here and hit your menu from the airplane on the right-hand side, and you can go through the whole thing again. Okay, I got the time set for the morning. Let's resume flight. The other way is we can come into the instructor panel. But before that, we have the map view, and we can position our airplane anywhere. All you have to do is click on the airplane. Once it turns yellow, now you can change the heading of the airplane. You can scooch the airplane over to the departure or arrival end of the runway by dragging the yellow airplane, and then we can click on the airport runway. That will unyellow, that will take the yellow away, and then we can click on the airport and get details. And we see now we're showing the wind speed, current wind speed is 230 at 19 knots. There's runway 33, so we're going to have the winds either come out of 100 or 240. Okay, and then there's our other runway heading is 150. We can press I, that will bring up the instructor operating station, IOS, and we can set our weather up right here. Look for location, and then you'll see weather. Then go ahead and hit the edit button. Let's take a look at the winds. We know that our runway is runway 33. We're going to use the winds out of 240. So if we scroll down just a little bit, wind layer number 1, we have the winds. We did already set this up as 242 degrees. That's close enough. We do have the wind speed at 20 knots. If I wanted to do a wind layer number 2, I could scroll down and grab wind layer number 2. So that's approximately 243 at 20 knots also. So we're pretty good. That looks like it's an aircraft carrier there. I wonder what that is. Lexington, Enterprise. Oh no, that one's in the museum. And at that point, we just come down here and hit this button that says change weather. You'll see it'll go through its little thing right here. And it did. Since it's already changed, it was pretty quick. And then all we have to do is hit the letter I. And it's gone. Next thing we're going to do, we're in the airplane, and we notice that the runway heading is 330 there. If you wanted to, just for reference, you could put your heading bug all the way around and put that on the direction of the wind. I got a view of the controls, looking pretty good, and you can see them on the monitor also. Okay, brakes off. So with the heading bug on the heading indicator, we can always see where the winds are coming from. Right, we're going to go ahead and look at this windsock right here. I'll scroll into that for you real quick. There you can see that. Here's the runway going right here, and there is the windsock. The wind's directly across the runway, and as you can see, the trees are out there doing their thing, swaying in the wind. So that proves there is a wind existence. Come back into the airplane, get ourselves set up visually. I usually just hit can hit W to do that. Okay, engine run-ups have been complete. Tires have been checked. They are properly inflated. Instruments look good. We do want to use 10 degrees flap, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in now. My little flap handle right here. You can't see that because this screen kind of blocks it. There you go. Winds. Okay. We know this airport is approximately 8 degrees above sea level, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that in my altimeter. Oops, wrong thing. Winds level there. We are basically taxiing. There's a little bit of a quartering headwind. Let's set our altimeter to this pressure level. It's going to give me about 8 degrees. That's good enough. Now we're starting to taxi into a headwind here. I can take out some of that control deflection. Neutral controls. All right, runway 33. We still have some lights illuminated on the runway. Crosswind takeoff, and then do a crosswind landing on the same session right now. Okay, as we apply power, our controls are directly into the wind. That's up aileron on the upwind side. Kind of spoils the lift coming across the wing. As the airplane, we directional control with the rudder, trying to maintain our ground track down the center of the runway. It's a little squirrely with the simulators, but get a little more power in there, they'll come together. Little movements on the rudder pedals. As the airspeed increases, controls become more effective. You start taking out some of that aileron so that we don't have a huge wing dip into the wind. Rotation speed's coming up a little faster for the winds. Wing goes down. There it is. We start to go wings level. The plane's going to weather vane right with the wind. It'll automatically kind of happen as we get back to coordinated flight. We're climbing out just below full power for this operation, right around 200 feet with the Laminar 172. Let's go ahead and go wings level. And we see we've gotten blown a little bit to the right side of the runway. I'm coming down about 2100 RPM. I'm going to do a left turn now into the wind, having a little bit, get back on my ground track. And let's take a look at the runway. There we are. We're on the center line of the runway. Okay. We get blown to the right again. So this time we're turning about 10 degrees into the wind. We don't do that by yawing the nose with the rudders. Let's just use the heading correction at 10 degrees to the left. See, still getting blown in a little bit. Just make that correct. We still have time. Okay, let's do our 10-degree crosswind landing. 10 degrees worth of flaps. Power comes down to about 1400 RPM. Let the nose drop down. Looking for about 70 knots, 65 to 70. Try not to pull the nose up too steeply. I'd rather have more of a nose down attitude like that. And you can kind of see our crab angle that's in there. We don't want to land with the airplane in a crab, so we're going to do the wing down method. The upwind wing is going to be down into the wind, and we're going to use the rudder to kick the nose to the right to align the longitudinal axis of the airplane in there. So there we are coming to the runway. Nice little crab going on here. So at this point, kick the nose over right, wing goes down, power comes down, holding the nose, and there's your crosswind landing. Power comes out, and a little bit of rudder pedals in there with rudder pressure in there. Okay, well, that time we had the crosswind from the left-hand side. Now, I'm not actually too warmed up for this. That was my first one. And now let's do one in the opposite direction. And if that one goes good, we'll call it quits right here and let you jump in your simulator and give it a shot. Again, I wouldn't recommend this in real life unless you have a airport in a sparsely populated area and you do it. So what we're thinking about, the controls actually should be deflected into the winds as I taxi back here. So forgive me for that. Okay, the winds are coming from 240. This time they are going to be from the right-hand side. I'm on runway 15. We'll get the airplane aligned. It's okay to start a little bit off a center line. I do that in there so the controls go deeply into the crosswind, direct crosswind. I'm going to apply power. As the airplane accelerates, we can start taking out some of that aileron deflection into the wind using minor rudder adjustments and application of power. If the nose is going to the right a little more, as I come in with the power, it'll bring the nose over to the left. Okay. A little swirly, but we're on the center of the runway kind of in there. Taking some of the aileron out. Coming into full takeoff power. Gusty. Nose up. Wing goes down. Now we start to crab into the wind. Continue our climb. Positive rate. As you can see, this is even a better angle. You can look out the front of the airplane with me. And I know 10 degrees worked well on the other one, so I'm going to automatically crab into the wind. And we want to get up to about 200 feet on the altimeter, indicated. Then go to 2,000 RPM. Let's take a look at our ground track. See if we have an adequate correction in there. Go right down the center line of the runway. As we get slower, we need more of a correction. Now I'm going to reduce power down to about 1400, 1500 RPM. A little more wing correction here. trying to keep coordinated flight. The ball's in the center, nose down, looking for about 65 to 70 knots all the way. If we're a little bit off the center line, don't use the rudder to bring the airplane back around at this point. Just take out some of that wind correction angle. The winds are from the right. Remember, it's easy. Sometimes I have to add a little bit of power. Okay, correcting. Now we're going to go to the wing down method. There it is. Left rudder kicks the nose over. Wing down. Holding that in there. At that point we slow down. We're getting full deflection into the wind. Getting a little squirrely there. Okay, let's taxi back. I'm going to do one without talking this time. See if I can concentrate. You notice we don't have a headwind or a tailwind, so we don't have to do the traffic pattern altitude. Bring my power back down to idle. Just trying to speed the process up here. And there's a nice shot of the windsock right there directly across the runway. This time I'm going to get on the center line, runway 33 for our takeoff. And then we're going to use that wind correction angle all the way down to the ground, and just at the right moment we're going to go ahead and kick in that rudder to get the longitudinal axis of the airplane aligned with the runway, and then at the same time bringing the aileron in for the wing down method landing, so we don't put too much of a side force on the airplane. Remember, if we have any extra power, reduce that power and then apply your brakes, and then, you know, kind of after you do it a couple times you get some pretty good practice. Okay, there we are. Controls into the wind. As you get better, you can apply the power faster to have more control here, which helps better with directional control in the simulator. Okay, airspeed's increasing. Usually around 40 knots, I start taking out some of it. 50 knots more. Now I start to rotate. I will get a little wing dip here. There it goes. Now we're going to go wings to the level, take out any excess rudder that we have. Coordinated flight, and let's work on our wind correction angle. Didn't I say I wasn't going to talk? Yeah, I did. A little right rudder. Coming up on 200 feet. Power 2000. Nose level. Oh, the wind blew us off a little bit. Okay, I'm going to turn into the wind a little bit. Fix that wind correction. Wings level. I'm already sweating. Center line of the runway. Winds are from the left-hand side. I need a little more wind correction angle. Got a little too much rudder in there on the left-hand side. Top rudder. Working on the wind correction angle. Still got plenty of runway left, as you can see it in front of us there. We got blown off to the right side, so let's get ourselves set up again. Turn into the wing a little bit more as time. Take out some of that wind correction angle. If the ball's out, you can use that rudder then to get it centered. That'll take care of it. Okay, there we are. Power comes down, 1500 RPM. Let the nose fall through. We want to keep that airspeed around 65 to 70. Using our crab method now to keep our ground track going straight. We're a little bit to the right. So just flying in. And as we come in here, we're thinking about, okay, I got to get my nose to the right, so that's going to be right rudder, and I'm going to have to get my wing to the left. That's where the wind's coming from. 65 knots, closer to the runway. We're still in that crab angle. Right about now. Let's go ahead and kick the nose right, wing down, power's coming out. As we slow down, ailerons deflected into the wind more and more. You're going to get those gusty conditions. That's not too bad. Okay, this one I'm going to do without talking. I think we got it. Whew. I'm telling you, my simulator friends, this is a great way to practice these crosswind landings in the simulator. Then you'll find during your cross-country flights and you go into an airport, you'll be looking forward for some good crosswind activity, and you might get 10 or 15 knots gusting to 20, and you'll find that those landings and those takeoffs will be a breeze. It's the little things that matter. It's kind of like practicing a musical instrument. You got to get the ground, you got to get the basics down. Learn other people's techniques, you can apply your technique. This time I'm going to line up on runway 15. Okay, powers to idle at this point. I'm holding the brakes. Okay, now I'm going to release the brakes. So let's think about our crosswind takeoff. Controls fully deflected. As the airplane gets faster and faster, we take out some of the controls. Rotation speed, back on there. Now what happens is when the nose starts going up and the power is higher, we're going to have that turning tendency, so we may have to apply some more right rudder. We want to make sure we're going to try not to get too uncoordinated with the flight, try to keep the ball in the center, and think about where the wind's coming from. If the wind is coming from the right-hand side, it's contacting the right-hand side of our vertical stab back there, so that's actually helping us with those left turning tendencies. In the opposite direction, you notice there was a completely different yawing moment with the airplane because the airplane was getting contacted on the left side, which actually increased that yawing moment with the airplane, where this kind of helps us a little bit more. And you'll notice it seems to be a little bit smoother when the crosswind helps us with that left turning tendency. Okay, so I'll just make sure my brakes are off. Nope, I'm holding my brakes. I use a button on my yoke right here, and I have that set up in my settings. I mean, I still have my toe brakes on the rudder pedals down here, down there, but on this button, I went into settings into X-Plane, you know, like you're setting up your honeycomb, and I took this toggle switch, and what it does is you can see it. Can you see it right here? That's that's not parking brake on. That's parking brake on. Okay, that little click of the button, that's me holding the toe brakes. But what that does, that gives me even braking. So when I apply brakes on the runway, I'm not using my rudder pedals for the braking. I'm just clicking on my button I assign to both brakes. It gives me even braking on both sides. So as I slow the airplane, and then once the airplane slows down more and I want to keep taxiing, I just click that button and the toe brakes go off. So you see, it's only minimum. I got the X camera for Cessna showing up there, in there. That's braking full. Sometimes I have one of my toggle buttons set up for the braking, so I can put that in the on position. But they're off now. I'm going to put my yoke back on. I can hit the letter Y, but there we go. So fully deflected into the wind. The wind is from the right. Power is applied. The sooner and the quicker you can get your airplane accelerating, the easier it is with directional control. But you can see that crosswind is already helping us. Okay, I'm going to be quiet. Right into a crab angle. About 200 feet. Nose goes level. Power 2000. Low cruise. Working on our correction. Ball's in the center. Nose on an angle into the wind. I can go back to the runway and use the wind to help blow me back. If I'm a little bit too far to the left here, I turn into the wind. I told you I wasn't going to talk, I promised. Don't believe me, I lie a lot. Okay, there's plenty of runway, so I'm going to reduce my power now to approach power setting for this. Increase my correction for the ground track to be straight. 70 knots. I don't want to get too slow in here, especially in the simulator. So the idea is to keep the power. If you have to add a little bit of power, the idea is to have that nose down attitude all the way down just prior to your round out, because you don't want to get too flat. So if you're having a trouble, let the nose fall through. Okay, kick the nose left, wing down, power comes out. Oops. See, I'm not perfect. And I'm putting the little toggle brakes on. Oops, feet off the rudder pedals. Toggle brake off. That'll straighten her up pretty quickly. Okay, let's do this one more time. Perfect timing. We see the birds had flown in. How many of them are there? Seagulls. Okay, well, let's wait for them to take off. There they go. Birds in the vicinity of the airport. Runway 33. This series of takeoff and landings, we are going to use the zero side slip. In other words, the wing down method. We're going to use the wings to control the drift of the airplane and use our rudder to control the longitudinal axis of the airplane. Okay, wings for the bank, rudder for our directional control, keeping the longitudinal axis of the airplane aligned with our direction of travel, which will be hopefully the center line of the runway. The previous takeoff and landings, we were using the crab method all the way down. rounding out, and you heard me say, okay, kick the rudder in, wing down, and we're very close to the ground, and bring the airplane to a stop. Whole idea of that is if you have really strong crosswinds and gusty conditions, I think it's a lot more comfortable to fly the airplane in a crab and maintain your ground track, and then as you reduce your power for your landing, maintain that crab. When you get to the round out, kick the rudder in, bring the wing into the wind, and that'll stop any drift, and then right there you're landing the airplane on the main gear. It's completely possible you might touch down on one wheel. On this, with the wing down method, it's totally possible that we'll be landing on one wheel, and part of our ground will be on one wheel because we're maintaining our drift control with the wing and also using the rudder to maintain our directional control. So one thing you want to keep in mind is that you're ready to descent. Make sure you've got that minimized just prior to touchdown, because you don't want to load up the landing gear, especially when you're touching down on one. That could load up, or you could get the inertia and the weight of the plane will want to come down on that second wheel too soon. If it's loaded up, you'll bounce back up and the wind will take you. You'll weather vane a little bit and everything will just get cattywampus. Your passengers won't like that very much, since this is supposed to be a maneuver to be graceful and easygoing. So since pilots are judged by their takeoff and landings, let's try to be graceful on this one. Now I have no guarantees because this is a simulator. It's not the real deal. I do make sure that my fuel is basically evened out here to help me. And also what I did on this one, since we're going to go for gracefulness, I reduced the winds down to 15 knots. So let's go ahead and get started. Controls into the wind. Anticipate that rudder too much or too little. Finding that sweet spot. About 315, 320. Power 2. Now let the wind blow us back. 2,000, about 70 knots, 10 degrees flaps. At this point, we're going to transition to our zero side slip, reduce the power to about 1,500 RPM, wing into the wind and opposite rudder, teeny tiny corrections. Sometimes you got to take your wings back to level for a moment. I'm keeping that rudder in there though. Let the nose fall through. Reducing the rate of descent. Trying to look for that one wheel landing. We had gotten a little slow at 60. Generally not enough to keep the airplane flying in ground effect. But you get the idea. swing her around. I could do this with the crosswind from the right more easily than I can do with it from the left. Level, 70 knots, 2,000 RPM. Allow the wind to move us back over our ground track. Okay, about 1,500 RPM, nose falls through. Feeling that wind kind of moving us over a little bit. Still okay. We're really not in a crab. More like a normal landing right here. Now we'll start to transition to that wing down method. And a little bit of opposite rudder. 70 knots, still good. There's that drift. I can start to see it now. So I'm coming in with a little bit more wing down method. A little more opposite rudder. More wing down. Now I need more rudder. Trying to keep one wheel up. One wheel up. I think that's about all we're going to get out of this sucker. Okay, well, I'm going to go with that. I hope you enjoyed the video. Welcome to Wings Wednesday, everything and anything VFR. Today's session was on extreme direct crosswinds across the runway, how to set up your crosswind, what length of runway to use, if you can find something that's at least 10,000 feet long or 17,000 feet, or Edwards Air Force Base, so I think the test pilot base, that's about 24,000 feet long, I don't know, and something that's a little bit wide, like 150 feet wide. If you want to test your abilities later, choose a more narrow runway, a shorter runway, work on your wind correction angle, get that wing down method going on, get the longitudinal axis of the airplane aligned up in there. Right now we have a little bit of a quartering tailwind, so my controls will be with the wind, and I'm going to dive away from the wind, so they should be forward like that. If you're with the check ride, quartering tailwind, dive away from the wind, ailerons, and nose. As it becomes a direct tailwind, I'm going to go ahead and continue to dive away, but we're going to keep the wing ailerons in the level position. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm actually sweating again. That was a great workout for me. I'm not perfect. I think if I did this for about another 20 or 30 minutes, I'd have a lot better results, but I'm sure you will, because I'm sure most of you are probably a better pilot than I am anyway. But I enjoy the VFR stuff too. I don't want to leave out those in the simulator world that enjoy this VFR flying and the challenges of taking off and landing on with some adverse conditions, such as a direct crosswind. I'm going to leave my controls go now and welcome. A good landing is one you can walk away from. A great landing is one that you can use that airplane again the next day. Those are not my words. Those are famous words from a very famous individual. His name is Chuck Yeager. I'm pretty sure he's probably landed his jets in here once or twice. Hey, hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Hit the subscribe button. And if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section. Or if you have something you want to see, anything VFR, turns around a point, rectangular patterns, I'll create some adverse conditions to make you work, and we'll go from there. Again, this is Steve with Flight Quest. Welcome to Wings Wednesday. Have a great day.